hunter is still out there. Secrets buried deep, waiting for someone brave enough to dig them up. In 1975, the calm town of Erie, Pennsylvania, was ripped apart by a savage and puzzling crime, the murder of 16-year-old Debbie Gama. She was a high school girl with a light in her eyes and a spirit that refused to fade. Her death became the center of an investigation that peeled back the quiet mask of a town that wasn't as innocent as it looked. Everyone in Erie knew Debbie. She was the girl people noticed the moment she walked in, kind, lively, and sharp. She could make anyone laugh and carried her wand like it was a part of her soul. She was the oldest of 5 kids, steady and bright. Her mother, Betty, had recently married a man named Norm Ferguson. They were learning how to live as one family again, holding on to simple happiness. But happiness is fragile, and it didn't last long. On the morning of the 22nd of June 1975, the sun rose like any other day. Debbie was in her room, changing clothes, talking to her mother about going to the beach. She smiled as she spoke, calm and full of plans. That moment was the last her family would ever share with her. A phone rang that morning, a man's voice on the other end. No one ever knew who he was or what he said. After that call, Debbie left the house. She never came back. At first, no one panicked. Teenagers wandered, stayed over at friends' places, came home late. It happened all the time. But hours stretched into night, and the silence grew heavy. Betty started calling Debbie's friends, one after another. None had seen her. None had heard from her. The air inside the house turned cold. What began as worry turned into something darker. By nightfall, fear filled every corner of that home. The Gamas knew something terrible had happened, and that their world would never be the same. A group of hunters near Cussewago Creek in Crawford County came across something that froze them in their tracks, the remains of a young woman. When detectives reached the spot, they knew right away this wasn't an accident. The body was rotted and broken, the air thick with decay. Identification was hard, but one thing was certain: whoever she was, she had been beaten, violated, and strangled. The coroner later confirmed the cause of death: choking. Thin metal wire had been wrapped tight around her wrists, ankles, and neck, cutting deep into her skin. It spoke of cruelty and control. Soon, the name of the victim was known. It was Debbie Gama. The news spread like fire through Erie, and what had been fear now turned to horror. The investigation tore the Gama family apart. Betty collapsed under the weight of the truth, while her husband, Norm Ferguson, found himself in the center of every whisper. He had been the last person to see Debbie alive, and soon, his life was under a magnifying glass. When police searched the basement, they found spools of welding wire, the same kind used to bind Debbie's body. That single discovery shook the town. Neighbors looked at Norm differently now. To them, he was guilty before trial. He became the lead suspect, though there was still no solid proof. Investigators sent the wire for chemical testing, hoping science could speak where words failed. They also chased another lead: a mysterious phone call Debbie had received the day she went missing. Desperate, they even tried hypnotizing her younger sister, Michelle, to recall the voice. It didn't work. The caller stayed faceless, and the darkness around the case only grew thicker. As weeks passed, the case began to gnaw at what was left of the Gama family. Betty started to look at her husband differently. The man she had trusted now stood under a cloud of suspicion. Norm couldn't handle it. He broke down often, shaking and crying, saying he felt guilty though he swore he hadn't done anything wrong. Still, there was no hard proof. The case dragged, and the air inside their home turned heavy and silent. The detectives gave Norm a polygraph test. It didn't give them a clear answer. The results meant nothing, yet the pressure grew. The police thought he was hiding something. Norm kept denying it all. He said he loved Debbie like his own child. Betty didn't know what to believe anymore. Each day she wavered between doubt and hope, between her husband's words and her daughter's memory. At the same time, detectives turned to another lead: a young man named 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐛𝐞. He had been close to Debbie, a classmate at Strong Vincent High. Her death had hit him hard. He told police he couldn't believe anyone he knew could have done it. The questioning went on for hours, But Nino's story never changed. He was grief-stricken, not guilty. Erie had stopped sleeping. People locked their doors early and looked twice at everyone they passed. Rumors moved faster than truth. Nobody trusted anyone, and the idea that the killer might still be among them made every shadow feel dangerous. Then came another name, George Ħardiński. He had once been Debbie's boyfriend, the boy who couldn't stay out of her orbit. They had been inseparable, light-hearted, young. Friends called them two butterflies. But love between teenagers burns fast and dies messy. Their breakup raised questions. Detectives wondered if anger or heartbreak had pushed George too far. They searched his truck and found blood on the seat. For a moment, it seemed they had their man. But lab tests crushed that hope it was deer blood. George walked free, and the search for Debbie's killer slipped further into darkness. Months had passed since Debbie's murder, and the trail had gone cold. Then came Dan Barber, a fresh private investigator with little experience but plenty of resolve. The police had run in circles, but Barber was determined to move where they couldn't. He started from the beginning, going over every forgotten note and dusty report. Betty and Norm met with him and shared what they could. They spoke about Debbie's kindness, her dreams, and the people she admired. Among those names came one that caught Barber's attention, Raymond Payne, Debbie's favorite teacher. He was easygoing, friendly, and loved by students. But the deeper Barber dug, the more the teacher's charm began to rot under scrutiny. A strange lead came out of nowhere. A man named Hartman was caught during a burglary in a nearby town. While being questioned, he mentioned something that made Barber's instincts stir. He and a partner, John Lascaris, had stolen a batch of industrial wire from a water company. The description matched the same type of wire used to bind Debbie Gama. Barber followed the thread. Lascaris had once been one of Payne's students. He was known to the police a thief with a record full of robberies and trouble. He had even used Payne's pickup truck to move stolen goods. The trail led to a junkyard where Lascaris had sold the wire. There, under piles of scrap, Barber found what tied everything together, the same kind of wire used in the murder. Raymond Payne had always seemed like the kind of teacher students trusted. Calm, supportive, the kind who smiled too much. But Barber's digging revealed something uglier. Payne had a history of crossing lines with students' whispers of misconduct that schools quietly swept away. Each time he was dismissed, another school hired him, too eager to ignore the past. Behind his calm voice and soft words was a man who had long escaped the truth, but not for much longer. Barber kept digging into Raymond Payne's past and found a trail of rot that stretched back years. Former students came forward one by one. Their stories were the same: drugs slipped into drinks, flashes from a camera, moments they couldn't remember, but could never forget. Payne had worn a mask of calm for decades, hiding his sickness behind the easy charm of a trusted teacher. Then came the breakthrough. Barber found something small, almost meaningless. At first, a name tag with Raymond Payne's name inside Debbie's keepsake box. It looked harmless, but it told a story that no one could ignore. Betty and Norm recalled that not long before Debbie vanished, they had taken her to Norm's high school reunion at a hotel. Coincidentally, Payne had gone to the same school as Norm. In the video Norm recorded that night, Payne and Debbie could be seen near the pool, talking, laughing, too close. It made everyone uneasy when they watched it again. Eventually, the walls closed in on Payne. Under pressure, he confessed. He admitted he had picked Debbie up the morning she disappeared and taken her to his farm. There, he tied her up, assaulted her, and killed her. Later, he tried to twist the story, saying Debbie had agreed to be tied, that it was all an accident. He claimed panic drove him to dump her body in a pond, but no one believed him. The evidence said otherwise. Raymond Payne was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Even as he stood in court, he denied everything, hiding behind the same lies that had protected him for years. But the truth was stacked high against him. The wire from his farm matched the one used to bind Debbie. It was over. The jury found him guilty. Payne was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. For the Gama family, it wasn't victory, only survival. Debbie was gone, and no verdict could change that. Betty carried her grief quietly. To lose a daughter was unbearable, but to know her killer had been a man she once trusted made it worse. Still, she chose to forgive him, not for him, but for herself. She said she couldn't live with hate. Norm, who had once been accused of the same crime, felt both broken and free. The truth had cleared his name, but it came at a cost he could never repay. The house was quieter now, the rooms emptier. Debbie's laughter was gone, but justice, however late, had found its way to them. In 2020, decades after the murder, Raymond Payne pushed for an appeal. He wanted a new trial and demanded that the DNA from the old rape kit be tested using modern methods. Back in 1975, such testing hadn't existed. When the results came, they stunned everyone. The DNA wasn't his. Payne swore that if given another trial, he would tell everything, but the court refused his request. Instead, his sentence was reaffirmed life in prison without parole. Soon after, he caught COVID in custody. He didn't survive it. Now, the truth lies buried with him. The case closed again, but not cleanly. Too many pieces never fit right. Many believe Payne didn't act alone, that someone else had been there that day. Someone who helped. Someone who stayed hidden. Maybe they had done it before. Maybe more than once. How many lives they touched, no one will ever know.